Hello and welcome to the Modern Romantic Podcast, where we celebrate and inspire romanticism through passionate people doing incredible things. Hi, I'm always crafting something beautiful. I am Trey. And always capturing the beauty of the world is my co-host Emily. Hi, Emily.
That was so nice. Did you see I was ready to shake my head?
Yeah, I know, because I make terrible puns every episode.
You do. And I was like ready to be like, oh, and roll my eyes. And then it didn't happen.
I know, I said something delightful. It was still pun-filled, but it was delightful.
It was delightful. I thank you for keeping me on my toes.
You're welcome? Question mark.
Question mark.
How's your week been?
Good. We've had the roller coaster of weather. And 'tis the season, I suppose. Yesterday was gorgeous. People were out in short sleeves finally, and it felt good. I got to wash my car. It was wonderful.
Ooh.
And today it's cold again. So we're back to hoodie season. And it'll come eventually. Yeah. How about you?
Doing really well. I've seen some great theater over the past week and heard some great theater news. Local to Charlotte, for anyone who's in the North Carolina area, um, Queen City Concerts is a local group to us that performs a varied amount of performances. They typically only do like a handful of performances in various venues across the city, but they are always spectacular. And I got to see A New Brain last night, which is a show I've never seen before, heard about, but I've never listened to, never seen it. It was fantastic. And then later today, I'm going to go see God of Carnage at Theater Charlotte. Um, and the theater news is that Maestro Mina, formerly with Opera Carolina, has started a new opera group for local and emerging artists in the opera community. Um,
Cool.
Not a lot of details to share at the moment. I want to make sure
Mm-hmm.
I get my facts right about it, but it's exciting that he is spearheading this for them because I know that the local community has been looking for something for this for a while. So, really exciting news in the theater and extended universe, the extended groupings along with performance. So it's a
I
great
like how
time.
you said that like the Marvel universe. The
It's the
the
opera
opera
cinematic
universe.
universe.
Right. I love hearing new art development news. I think that's wonderful.
It's a great time.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I love even more than developing news in the performance space?
I You're gonna have to tell me.
Ah, it would have to be the way that our guest today crafts his incredible pieces. Would you introduce our fantastic guest today?
Absolutely. We have with us Ula Sand, who is from Oslo, Norway, and joining us live here today. Thank you for coming to the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
This is
It's
very
very
exciting.
exciting.
Yeah, it
Yes, it
is.
is.
You're our
I
first official Norwegian that we have interviewed that I know of.
oh, well, that's cool. I know Norwegians have a bit of a standing, where you are. So
Oh,
that's
wait, yes.
mm-hmm. I
Very
and
tall
this is
people. Very tall people around here. So, sorry, go ahead.
no, this I was just gonna say this is my first time doing something live since I think 2012,
Oh,
where I was interviewed at Italian radio representing the Norwegian embassy, and it was a disaster.
oh no.
So yes, and I haven't done anything like it since. So I'm hoping that today, I mean, it can't be as bad as that time, probably.
No,
So I'm cautiously optimistic, but yeah, but
me too.
exciting.
I can't imagine. I mean, that sounds like a lot of pressure, an interview like that, especially live.
Yeah,
I want you to know there's no pressure here at all.
no,
No, art is more fun.
definitely much more fun. And it
Yeah.
helps that it's not, I mean, this interview was at, I think, 1 in the morning and in
Oh,
Italian and about something I had no idea about, I, people asked me about, this was actually also about art, but they asked me about, there was a band, Norwegian band coming to Italy, and they asked me about the band's motivation for doing something. And I was like, I don't have a clue. But instead of saying that I don't have a clue, I just try to answer the question, which I've learned, you probably shouldn't do if you have no idea what you're talking about. Just say so.
right.
Yeah,
We've all done that. at
Mm.
some point. I do
I,
that regularly.
Hmm.
where you try to answer the question?
I mean, if I can muster an answer, I sometimes try.
Because I feel like you always know the answer, and I'm always very impressed by the answer. So if you've been lying to me all these years, like, how dare you?
I mean, in my free time, I am constantly educating myself, so maybe that just comes across. But no, I don't know all the answers. I take educated guesses. Maybe it comes across. I don't mean to come across like a know-it-all.
No,
That's
no,
not
it's not
it.
that. No, that's not it at all. You seem very worldly, and I
Oh,
appreciate that about you.
thank you. It's that's hard one. Appreciate-
Well, I really want to know because looking at your pieces that you've crafted through your Instagram and from the interviews that I've been able to find, I am so incredibly impressed. I
Mhm.
really do have to know, how did you get into creating jewelry and crafting these incredible pieces?
Oof, that is actually quite a fun story. Or, well, it's not funny, but it's quite cool, I think. Because this started as a hobby. I had always been interested in jewelry, but never really thought that it was something that I could do for a living, as most people tend to think about creative things. We're being taught these really bad, these biases
Mhm.
against working with something creative. But I've always had a fascination for jewelry, and it actually started because I saw at my local library there was a workshop in which you could learn how to solder things,
Oh yeah.
and this was the kind of soldering. I mean, we soldered like a microchip of some kind,
Oh.
or like a chip, like a computer thing. I don't care about this at all. But in the introduction to um, this workshop, it said that you could solder jewelry, and I was like, "Ooh, that sounds fun!" Like fun. And I went there, and then there was something about, and that's probably a bad sign because there's something about the smell of melting metal that I really liked. Um, and then
Hmm.
I basically just started. I ordered a bit of equipment afterwards because I felt really inspired, and I ordered some equipment, watched some videos online on YouTube while I was waiting for the equipment to come, and then there's basically just trial and error for a long time, um, with less and less error. So, and it was born out of basically, I mean, it started as a hobby, and I knew very, very quickly that it was like the biggest passion I'd ever had for anything. And so, and then this was in January 2020. So, lo and behold, COVID comes in and changes the world,
Yes.
completely.
Mhm.
And I suddenly find myself having the time to dedicate myself to this hobby. And then my dad was the one who, at some point, told me, "Why don't you try to make this your job?" Because I was unemployed at the time, because I only
Oh
had
shit.
temporary positions. And then, with COVID, that became obviously very tricky. Um, so yeah, it started out basically just as a hobby, and a great passion, and lots of trial and error. And I'm really proud of how organically it evolved, because it wasn't. Um, I didn't go into this with a business mindset of wanting to create, a business and make a logo, make a, you know, um, statement about, these are my values or whatever. People, I think it's very easy to see when people follow this recipe for how you are supposed to make a business, and then they do that, but they don't really have um, much else often. And I did it exactly the opposite way. I had the passion, and I had what I made, and that was it.
And you mentioned the word organic, and that's kind of how I would describe your style as well.
Yeah, yeah. Yes, I mean, I think perfection is really uninteresting. I think the fact that people can create something perfect is good, you know, and it's, I mean, craftsmanship is obviously extremely important.
Hmm.
Um, but I don't find a perfect piece of jewelry fascinating. I need it to be a bit rougher, a
Hmm.
bit different. I like, for example, I mean, um, I like to call my style a rough elegance because there is elegance, but there's something different to it. And that something different needs to be there, I think, for it to be interesting. So, for example, I make a lot of wedding rings, and
Hmm.
people, I hear a lot that people can tell when they see someone on the street or in a party or something wearing a wedding ring that I made. Because from a distance, you see that it's a wedding ring, but then you see there's something a bit different about it. So it draws you in and you want to experience it. And you get to see that there's something more than just a wedding ring. And that I think is really, really nice.
Yes, and it's very unique. I haven't
Hmm.
seen your work is something like I've never seen before, and
Hmm.
that's part of what drew me to reach out to you to have you on the show. I thought that was really. Um, I thought it would. It was. I said unique so many times now,
Hmm.
but I really did think it was unique, and you can tell that it's also handcrafted, which makes it that much more interesting and that much more maybe precious would be maybe
Yeah.
the word I'm thinking of. It's special
Yeah.
because it must be difficult to make. Or do you make any two pieces that are alike?
Um, yes and no. So far, I haven't really done that, but I'm actually launching um, this new kind of line
Okay.
in a few weeks at this Norwegian design store
Oh, nice.
called Norway Designs, yeah, in Oslo. And that's the first time I've ever sold something in a shop. Um, and so those pieces will be, they're obviously handmade,
Hmm.
but there's, you reproduce the same model multiple times.
Okay.
So um, I don't know if that answered the question.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
so.
Mm.
So I want to go back to something you said because it stuck with me that you find perfection to be boring and you
Mm.
like when something is, I'm going to use the word imperfect, but I'm not sure if that's exactly what I'm going for.
Mm.
It makes me think about times on our show when we've talked to other artists and they want to make it right and they want to make it perfect for them. So
Mm.
when do you know that something that is imperfect is perfectly done?
Mm,
Ooh,
that's a good question.
that is difficult, and I think it's something you see. I mean, you know when it's right. I think for me, it's often when for example, this ring. Um, I don't know if you can see it properly.
Yeah.
Anyway, so it's an oval stone, and it's kind of offset, so it's not centered.
Hmm.
And you have this texture that is, very alive, like a
Yes.
molten kind of texture, which I love. I mean, when when I made this, I was actually this model I made for a diamond, which is obviously, I mean, by Norwegian standard, 1.5 carats is huge. Not many
Okay.
people have diamonds this size, I think. Obviously, in the US, it's quite different. You have a very different um, culture around engagement rings, which we can come back to because it's quite interesting, I think.
Yes, I would like
But
to.
so I made this ring for this diamond and spent quite a lot of time, which I don't usually do. Usually, I just make something and it's done.
Okay.
But here I made a few different versions to pinpoint exactly what I wanted, right? So I explored some different options also with side stones. Um, and there was something about the simplicity of this, but also the simplicity in combination with, I mean, the texture, the offset or off-scented stone, that just like I just saw it, that this is what I wanted. So I think it's easy. For example, in paintings, I think people talk about how you can overdo it, or in sculpture. But I think particularly in painting, you have this, or at least I've heard a few times people say that you've overworked a painting.
I've heard that too.
Yeah. And I think for jewelry, it's more about, I mean, of course, you have to know when to stop. But for me, that's quite easy because I want every piece to have traces of the process. So, for example, when I sand cast rings, which is what I do most of the time, every ring gets a unique fingerprint from the sand that I've used to cast them.
Okay.
And so for me, it would be wrong to, or not wrong, I don't know if you can say wrong, but not morally wrong. But for me, it's counterintuitive to me to remove too much of a texture that comes from the process, because I think it's a beautiful process. And I think the uniqueness of it is what makes it special. Um, so, so I'm always, I try to keep as much of that texture and of that story as possible, really.
And I feel like that because when I look at the bands in particular, a lot of them that I've seen feel like they're mini tree trunks or mini
Hmm.
like almost a wood going around it. So you get this very natural feeling to them.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what drew me to some of the pictures. That was the started with the band actually, then going to the way that the stone was set.
Mm.
Mm-hmm. I would agree. That happened for me too. Some of it's very branch like and organic, like I said.
Mm.
Um, and do you ever intentionally try to make something look like uh, the texture of something else, like a tree or?
Yes, I have some. I've made some rings that I have made as like actually tried to communicate a sense of it being a branch, right?
Mm-hmm.
But what I find quite interesting is that in most of my work, I don't do this. It's just,
Okay.
but people read into it, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So, for example, I have a ring that I call the Ridge. That's I'm not good at naming my stuff. I don't do that. I think it's tacky for, I find so many people just like do this and try and they just add a name to something that doesn't make any sense at all. So I don't really do that. But this one ring has a name because it
Okay.
reminds me of a mountain ridge.
Okay.
Um, but the interesting thing is that when I've shown that to many people, some people don't see a mountain ridge or
Oh.
range at all. They see bark, so
Okay.
tree bark. So I find it's interesting how people read different things into something that is so. I mean, it's unintentional because I've just made a shape and I made a texture, but I haven't actually tried to make something look like a mountain ridge. But to me, it looks like a mountain ridge. But then other people see tree bark, which I think is quite nice.
Yeah, you don't know how someone else is going to interpret it
Mm,
always. And that
no.
must be interesting to hear that feedback when it
Mm,
happens.
yeah.
When you're crafting, I'm sure that you probably get some level of commission for
Hmm.
some pieces. Do you ever find that you're spending more time creating specific pieces for other people, or do you create them yourself and then they find their person later on?
Mm, mm. I definitely, I mean, I spend most of my time on commissions.
Okay.
In the beginning, when I was just, exploring, I did that very freely, which is what probably, came to define my style, right? Um, but I would say 90% of the time that I spend making jewelry is on commission. So that probably is because as I said, I haven't had my jewelry in any stores. I don't have a web page, so where would people find my jewelry? Where would they buy already made pieces. Very limited availability for that,
Sure.
So that's probably a part of the reason why. But also just, as an independent creative, like I need to need to make a certain amount of money every month to pay my mortgage and to live from, right?
Yes.
So I work very much on commission, and as long as I can do that, and as long as I have clients waiting for their rings, that's always my first priority. And then my own just sitting down at the bench creating freely becomes less and less of a, much more rarely do I take the time to sit down and just create something, which is sad. And I have tried to I've had an ambition to take one day a week in which I just create, but that's impossible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
So but it's an ambition that it's at the back of my mind. I do want to make sure that I have time, that I set aside time to just create things, because that's obviously where the passion comes from. And it's, when you have an engagement ring, for example, that I'm making, or it's actually a wedding ring, but it's kind of a mix between an engagement ring and a wedding ring. It's going to be very organic, very asymmetrical, with a really nice marquee cut diamond as the center stone. But when you say for something to be organic and asymmetrical, that is a very broad term. And what I imagine in my head when I say this, or we talk about it when we design something with my clients, that can be quite different from what my client imagines. So that's always a difficult, or not so difficult, but it's an important thing to be aware of, that the ideas that we have can be lost in translation. And for something to be organic and asymmetrical can mean one thing to me, and then my client might want to make a tiny adjustment because they've imagined the shape a bit more like this or a bit more like that. And then it's just like, and obviously jewelry is small, right? So a millimeter more or less makes a huge difference. So I think that's also it's a really fun challenge most of the time. But it's also something that limits you as a creative compared to just sitting there and making something for the joy of making it.
When you are making something for yourself or something you want to design because you have it in your head and you want to get it out into reality, what are you inspired by to create?
Um, I I get this question quite a lot, and I usually say that I am not inspired by something, I am inspired.
Okay.
Yeah, and because that's how it feels. I just feel like I have a need to create, and it happens. And the word inspire comes from Latin, which meaning to breathe life into, and that I think is quite a nice thing to be aware of, because it's this life that is here. Inspiration doesn't have to come from anywhere for me. It's just
Right.
it's there. Because I am inspired. I already have the inspiration within me. But that being said, I can have glimpses of, I see a shape, and I want to recreate it. For example, if I see a shape in nature, or I feel, for example, I was in Lofoten, very famous, probably the most famous place in Norway for gorgeous nature. I was there for a while a couple of years ago, and just like walking on the beaches, looking at the mountains, picking up barnacles and things from on the beaches, and seeing I don't know what you call that, but it's a kind of moss that grows on
Oh,
trees, like, or
okay.
lichen, or yeah. Just seeing all these things, that does give me inspiration also. Yeah, so I think nature is a huge inspiration. Um, Yeah. But I seldom sit down and, and and draw inspiration from something. Yeah. I feel
Right.
like it's just there.
Sometimes on the show, we talk about if you lose inspiration or if it's waning somehow, it's not, you didn't have as much, or you get burned out, maybe um, how you would fuel that again. And some
Mm,
artists are more intentional about making sure they have a constant flow of inspiration or at least something consistent. And some artists are like you
mm,
who can just be inspired because they don't see like a limit
mm,
to their inspiration. And
mm,
so that's interesting. And it's something that I like talking about it with our guests because it's something that I always want to know, like, how are you fueling
mm,
your creativity? But
mm.
you still have a tank full of
Yes,
inspiration within you.
I'd say so. But this is also where another interesting aspect of life as a creative comes into the picture, because you have something that you're passionate about that you do and you have the inspiration, but then life will always be, or especially when you work creatively, that will always to some degree still be work.
Mm-hmm.
So, and that is something that I felt quite strongly over the past maybe couple of years, or year and a half. Like I've struggled so much, like just like posting things on Instagram, for example, because that's not where my passion lies, right?
Right.
That's
Mm-hmm.
not something I do because I enjoy it. Even though if someone had told me, you know, 6 years ago when I had a completely different job, that I would be complaining about taking pictures or videos and posting on Instagram, like I would have laughed at them because that would have sounded like a dream job, kind
Right.
of. Yeah. Um, but I think working creatively, it still becomes work. And for me to try to maintain this level of both the passion and my energy level, I find that for me it's been really important. Relatively recently, I've rediscovered the joy of swimming. So I go swimming, and because I've done this like multiple times a week for a while now, and because I don't have, I don't work with anyone. I don't have, employees or
Right.
bosses or whatever. I'm my own boss, and nobody works for me, so it's very flexible, right? So
Yeah.
I usually go out, especially now during winter. I've gone out like midday, try and catch as much sunlight as I can, going to swim, and that's been really good. So I think it's important to do things that gives your body energy as well as a
Mm-hmm.
creative. Not just It's not just about the mind or the creative spirit or whatever. It's also about making sure that your body has the best kind of um, starting point or um, framework
Mm-hmm.
to do your job.
There's probably a balance there
Mm,
that is helped by that.
yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if you're familiar, but there was an American painter named Bob Ross. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and he liked to say that there are never mistakes, there are just happy little accidents.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm curious, what's a happy little accident of yours that you wound up loving?
That's a
Oh,
good question.
I've got two good examples. One of the ridge ring that I mentioned earlier. I have two different versions of that. One that's a bit bigger, one that's a bit smaller. The bigger one is it's also this like organic asymmetrical shape. But that actually, when I made that model, started out as the idea was to make a very symmetrical um, signet ring. And because I'm a very impatient creator, I will sit there and I will be, working away on this wax model. And then suddenly, because I'm too impatient, I can see that I'm not going to manage to make the shape that I wanted. but then I kind of discovered a different shape, and where I saw the potential for a different shape. And then I abandoned my original plan and just went with the shape that was kind of emerging from the wax based on that accident. And that became one of, I would say the ridge is probably one of my, it's kind of a defining ring. Um, you can look at it and see, yes, that's what I do. So that was nice. And also this ring, which I really
yes.
love. This is a Canadian diamond
Oh.
that used to be round, and I'd set it in a different kind of ring, like more a classic, like an engagement ring type. It wasn't an engagement ring, but it looked like an engagement ring, even though obviously the stone is very different. But I dropped that on my bathroom floor
Oh.
one day, and it broke.
Mm.
And people are shocked when I say this because they don't believe that diamonds can break.
Oh.
Um, because you hear that diamonds are the strongest material or the hardest, right? But that just means that nothing else can scratch a diamond but a diamond. But you can break diamonds very easily. I do so quite often, actually, sadly, myself. When I try to set these small diamonds, because I'm not a gem setter, I'm not been educated as a gem setter. So especially earlier in on my jewelry journey, I was very um, unafraid, and I did things that I would never do now, trying to set stones, breaking a lot of them, um, which was part of the learning experience. But yeah, diamonds can actually break quite easily. So that happened to this, and when this broke, I just had this idea of that the original round shape of the diamond obviously wasn't there anymore. So what could I do to give it a new life and to give it a new expression? And that's it. And
Very
this ring
creative.
also, yeah, and this ring also, like people give me a lot of people like this ring a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
Yes, I do too.
Thank
And it
you.
has a story behind it now too.
Yes, actually, it has lots of stories behind it. Yeah, and that is so this the breaking of the diamond. That's obviously a big part of the story, but it's also the gold itself has there's so much history, and that is something that I really appreciate about jewelry is that the way that they can carry um, histories.
Mm-hmm.
So from family histories, personal experiences, there's so much meaning that can go into a ring, and that of course if you see a ring not knowing the history, then you just see a pretty ring.
Right.
But if you know the story, jewelry can also be extremely, or they're probably one of the biggest, I think, bearers of meaning across generations. If you think about it, that jewelry, because it's precious, it's always you take care of it, you pass it on to the next generation,
Mm-hmm.
and usually people don't really know much about their family history more than, or if at all. But we don't know the people more than maybe 2 or 3 generations
Mm-hmm.
across. But a piece of jewelry can travel across, you know, endless generations
Mm-hmm.
in theory. And that I think is a really, really beautiful thing.
That and you can I mean, I've heard people doing this, but I don't know any specific stories, but you could take jewelry and melt it down and make something new from it.
Yes,
So it can have new life somehow and
yes,
still hold stories from the past.
exactly. And that's what I do almost all the time,
Oh, okay.
because most of my clients are very, um, you know, completely normal people. They're people that they come to me specifically. I mean, most of them come to me for engagement rings and wedding rings or like big occasions. But those are the two biggest occasions. And that's when so people, I don't have many clients that just spend, you know, $2 or $3 or $4,000 on a ring just for fun. I have people that, save up for a long time.
Mhm.
They gather gold from their families. For example, for wedding
Okay.
rings, people will ask, "Oh yeah, so we're getting married. We're going to this guy who can remelt your own gold. Um, do you have anything you want to contribute to our wedding rings?" And
Oh.
so grandparents, parents, typically, if you have like a lost earring and you only have one left, then you can remelt that. Or your grandparents or great grandparents' wedding rings are very often used when I make wedding rings for people,
I
um,
love that.
right?
I love
Because
that
then
so
you
much
then
more.
you have in this ring you already have, um, at least if you're mindful about it, you have the potential of telling a family history that goes way beyond those three generations that we know. And it can be so, and this can be gold can be remelted endlessly. So that I think is a really beautiful thing that you can really have, as long as you tell the story, it can go on forever in a ring.
There's a question brewing about storytelling that I can't quite like pull out of the air right now, so I'm going to hold on to that. We'll come back
Mm-hmm.
to it later in the episode if I can make it fully tangible. So instead, I'm going to redirect and say, you've mentioned rings a couple of times, but
Mm-hmm.
I have seen from your Instagram that you have also made other things.
Mm-hmm.
What's a piece that you are the most proud of that you have made in your career so far?
Hmm. Mm. I will probably have to say there's a ring that I made quite early on, which is a very big gold ring. And I made that from all the, when you work with gold or silver, when you cut it, you always have a tiny bit that falls down that you collect,
Hmm.
right? So basically leftover gold from production, from cutting and filing and all this stuff. And so when I bought this stone that was really, really beautiful, an inexpensive stone, a topaz, but quite big and a gorgeous color. And I bought that relatively early on, and I wanted to make something that I felt matched how pretty the stone was. And I wanted to set it in gold because it's quite a deep blue. So I felt like it would match gold better than silver, which obviously most of the time I would make silver rings because you don't have lots of gold lying around if you're unless you have lots of money before you start making jewelry, which is probably smart if anyone's considering. Um, but so I made this ring that also kind of became a happy accident because in order to make the ring, I I mean I'm really proud of it because if you look at this ring and you say that it's sandcast, you wouldn't really believe it because it's not possible to sandcast a ring that looks like that
Oh.
as is. So what I did, speaking of creativity, I talked to a really intelligent man a few years ago who said that creativity, what is creativity? And he said creativity isn't creation, it's problem solving. And I thought that was quite interesting. And this is a good example of how creativity is problem solving because I had this vision of what I wanted to make, knew it wasn't possible, had to divide the ring into several pieces, sandcast them individually, and then file them and put them all back together and solder them together. After I did that, I also realized that I had completely underestimated how heavy gold is compared to wax because I hadn't really worked with gold much before, right? So this ring became really heavy, and also I couldn't afford to make a ring just for myself for the fun of it, and have all that gold just lying around. So what I did was I made lots of small holes in the ring, and I started kind of excavating this
Okay.
pattern in the ring, and that also became very organic. Um, and asymmetrical and gorgeous. And it actually reminds me of a fountain in a big park in Norway, which is Vigelandsparken. There's a big, yeah, huge sculpture park, which is fantastic in Oslo. And it reminds me of one of those fountains for some strange reason, because the fountain is, ooh, Emily disappeared.
She should be back in just a moment. Sometimes we have an issue, but she'll be right back. There she is.
Now named Josh.
Oops. Why am I named John? Oh, I will fix that.
So yeah, this fountain doesn't look like this ring at all, really, but somehow it reminds me of it. That's a long way of basically answering your question about a ring that I'm really proud of. But I'm proud of it because it is, technically it was a difficult thing. It really I needed to solve a lot of problems making it, and it turned out very beautiful. So I think that must be, that must be it.
I love stories like that. And I love that you have so much, that you tell it in such a way that not only are you creating something that you can show the final product, but you have this great lead-in of a story to that sort of thing. And I use the term product, again, not the word I'm searching for, but it's still something nice to represent the end goal of that story, and to be able to say, and out of all of this, here's this beautiful thing that I have crafted that you can now touch and feel and experience the history of this along with me.
Yeah, and I think that, and the storytelling, again, we come back to storytelling, how important that is. Because that also says something about what it is that I do and what makes what I do meaningful. Yeah, I don't know where I was going with that line of thought.
Well, it's part of your story too, and part of your creativity.
Yeah, that's true.
How fascinating. So you have had some interesting places your jewelry has been seen and shown. One of them was on The Voice Norway, correct?
Yes.
Yeah. How was that experience?
Oh, that was fantastic. So that was also a really happy coincidence. I hadn't watched the show myself, but my brother-in-law sent me a message one day saying, "Ole, you really have to check out Lavrans. This guy he did so well, and he just has the most incredible talent or gift that is just really, really inspiring." And my brother-in-law just said, "Oh, you should contact him and see if he wants to work with you, to wear some of your jewelry for the show." And I sent him a message, and we just bonded immediately, and had a really, really very close and rewarding working relationship that was really fun. And also, so this was really fun because Lavrans obviously is an incredible talent, but it's also because it was unexpected and it was something new. In this, coming back to this idea of work or a passion, working with a passion, also becoming work. This was a breath of fresh air that was great for me. Yeah.
And I feel like his style and your style are kind of in a similar vein.
Yeah, they go very well together. There's I mean, the imperfection is key there, but also the balance between, or the freeing yourself from expectations of how you're supposed to look, or what you're supposed to wear, or what a man is supposed to look like. For example, what is feminine. Like people ask me sometimes, do you make jewelry for men? And I'm like, oh, yes. I mean, I make jewelry, and people wear it if they like it, and that's the beauty of it.
Mm-hmm.
And Lavlan's obviously is a very both aesthetically. I mean, his appearance, uh, he's a very beautiful person, but
Mm-hmm.
also, and also a very kind of enthralling mix of masculine and feminine.
Mm-hmm.
And there, of course, my jewelry also is just that because um, both because of how I use it, because you can wear like a ring. I should have cleaned this, but I didn't.
Oh, I
Uh,
love that.
yeah, so this is a quite, quite a feminine ring. If you think, oh, would a man wear that? Probably not, most men, but it's nice to be able to just appreciate beautiful things and to be able
Mm-hmm.
to wear them. And I think you're right in that we definitely were a great match aesthetically as well. Mm.
The ring you held up is two
Mm.
different shapes of stones and two different
Yes,
colors
yes,
together.
yes. And this is also, um, interestingly, this is so the two stones together is a actually quite old engagement ring design
Oh,
called Toi et moi, so you and me.
oh,
And it was very common long before diamonds were like the thing for engagement rings, and long before the solitaire, like
mm,
the one big, especially in the US again,
yeah.
the one big diamond, and then that's an engagement ring. But this idea of setting two stones next to each other as representing the two people in a union, um, that's much older. And I made this actually. So this is a yellow diamond and salt and pepper diamond, but it's also got a tiny bit of blue in it, which makes it very, very special. Um, and this is actually a ring that. So this is the first diamond that I bought from my diamond dealer that I was lucky enough to meet quite early on in my career. Always quite a flex saying my diamond dealer. It just sounds,
It
you know,
does.
deliciously extravagant.
Hmm.
But so this was the first diamond that I bought from her for myself, and then the yellow diamond I bought actually after a breakup or a divorce, actually, very significant breakup. And I saw this stone, and I was just like, you know what? My ex never got me any jewelry, never got me a diamond, and I was like, I'm gonna treat myself. I'm gonna buy a really pretty diamond. I'm gonna make a really pretty ring just for me.
Good
I'm
for
glad you
you.
did.
Yeah.
I'm also very glad. And this design also is one of the ones that people very often come back to, that people love this design. And actually, speaking of my work being quite unique, this was not really a thing when I made this ring. The Trois Mois, which has had a great renaissance in maybe the last three 3 years, I'd
Oh,
say. Yeah, this it's become much more popular in very recent years. So I was kind of at least a bit ahead of my time with this.
I have noticed since the pandemic kind of a renaissance of more romantic styles. And
Mm,
I love that notion about that style, that that's something that it's, and people tend to maybe gravitate towards something that's maybe a little more different and unique. I'm one of those people.
mm, mm,
So I wouldn't want the typical super clear diamond solitaire
mm.
stuff. In fact, it thrills me that a salt and pepper diamond would, at least in the US, a salt and pepper diamond used to just be like a dirty diamond that no one would
Yes,
buy.
no, they had no value for a
Yeah.
very long time. And then now I think particularly with mass production, and the huge like this drive, the very capitalistic drive to just consume goods,
Mm.
and you buy new things all the time, or you don't repair things or whatever. I feel like we're so tired of this being the norm that we have wanted to take a step back and slow down and get the handmade ring, get the salt and pepper diamond, because it's not something that you can get anywhere else. Or a salt and pepper diamond will always be unique.
Mm-hmm.
And I think there's a comforting um, thought in that as well, because just as a salt and pepper diamond comes from imperfections, but that's what makes that diamond special. I think that also reflects a bit on us. You know, we're all imperfect, and I think to really lift the idea of imperfection as a value, um, rather than it's a way of telling ourselves that we are good enough just the way we are. I think.
Mm-hmm.
Speaking on like alternatives to that, I've always wanted a ring, and I would hope that my whoever to be partner, should they propose, I don't want a diamond. I
Mm,
I do not want a diamond. What I
mm,
would love to see in that proposal would be either a sapphire
mm-hmm.
or alexandrite, which I know is terrible to put into a ring because it's very
Yes,
soft, but
yes.
I would love to see alexandrite set in a ring.
Mm. Alexandrite is also a very rare stone.
Hmm.
A natural alexandrite is extremely rare. And for people listening, if you're not familiar with alexandrite, which wouldn't be surprising, is a stone that changes color depending on the light.
Oh.
Yeah, yeah, very incredible. Um, I personally, I don't make jewelry with synthetic stones. So because, and I mean, that's a long, you can discuss lab grown diamonds versus natural diamonds for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
But for me, I mean, I can't escape the one thing, people, when they sell lab grown diamonds, they always talk about how sustainable it is, which is, and it's also, it's so simplified, but it's so easy to attach a label of uh, that label to something without actually it being true. But for me, as an artist, what's more important is that I find the fact that nature has made this much more interesting and awesome in the right sense of the word than uh, that humans are able to reproduce something, which is also interesting, and a great feat in itself. But I find a diamond being created, um, 2 or 3 billion years ago, way down in the Earth's crust, you know, tons of pressure and heat, and then turning out to be this beautiful, shiny, sparkly thing. I think that's really fascinating. So I think the natural aspect of it also is just, um, yeah, it brings me joy in a way that something human made can't.
And that's kind of part of that story as well.
Of the diamond,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, yeah, and also that you can read into, if you want, for example, it's a bit of a cliche, but diamonds form under pressure,
Mm-hmm.
uh, is uh, is hopeful in a way, right? Because we all go through life facing difficulties, to lesser or larger extents, and to look at something and think, well, this was made in a really under lots of pressure and in darkness, or in but it turned out really beautiful. I think that's can be quite a comforting thought also.
Mm-hmm. I would agree. Just like the happy accidents.
Yeah, they're
Mm-hmm.
important. They're part of what makes life interesting, I think.
I totally agree.
I
Hmm.
wish more people saw that.
Mm-hmm.
Hmm. I mean,
Sure.
that's what romanticism is about, right? Isn't it? A
Mm-hmm.
bit like, just like how awesome the world is, and taking the time to sit down and appreciate it, or to walk around and appreciate it, or whatever. But
Yeah.
um, I think that is something that just talking about it now makes me, I feel happier. just thinking about it, because I am so appreciative of nature and this kind of awesome thing that we're in, which is, life is really hard sometimes, but it's also really beautiful and really fun and full of potential, um, for joy.
And full of salt and pepper diamonds
Yeah.
that are people and stones.
Yes.
So you must get some questions from people like, how do I do what you do? Or how do I
Yes.
get started? What is a piece of advice that you give?
Mm, I am usually a bit blunt. I'm quite, and I tell people that it's okay to have dreams and ambitions, and to want to make something like this and to work creatively, but you have to be aware of that it's going to challenge you so much, and it's going to take so much hard work. Like, I've never worked as hard with anything in my entire life as I have with uh, making it with making jewelry. Um, and hard work is one thing, but also you have to have the talent, and that's a very in Norwegian we it's a very un-Norwegian thing to be saying something like that, because that indirectly means that I'm saying that I have talent, which you should not say in Norway. You shouldn't be, um,
It's
you
arrogant.
shouldn't be. Yes, very.
Yeah.
And so you're not supposed to do that. But I'm like, you know what? I've made this. I've worked really hard, and I know I have talent, so I'm not afraid to say it. And so I think hard work, but you also really need the talent. If you don't have the talent, you're never going to survive um, making jewelry. Of course, you can then also, if you want to make a living of it, you need the talent and you need a huge amount of work put into it. But also, I really like to remind people that say you have a day job that isn't that fulfilling. It's not why you get up in the morning, but you go there and you do your 9 to 5, and you come home and you can leave work behind, and there's a huge freedom in that, of not, if you can do that, um, but also to think of your day job or the 9 to 5 job as that's something you do to make the money that you need in order to live the relatively comfortable life that you're living. And then you have all this, or hopefully, I know in the US you work a bit more than us Norwegians, but hopefully you have some spare time in which you can dedicate yourself to um, to your passions and to doing something creative and to learning new skills, um, without the pressure of having to make money of it, because that's a pressure that you really should not underestimate.
I would agree.
Mm,
Yes. When I haven't had that pressure, I feel like I'm much more creative
yeah.
and, like you said, free. Free is
Mm,
probably the key word there,
mm,
because it does free up a lot of things.
mm.
Mm-hmm. Have you felt
I
that way,
mean,
Trey? Oh, sorry.
no, no, go ahead.
Yes, because there was a day where I had gotten off of work, and I believe it was right before our podcast. A friend contacted me over Instagram to ask some questions about making a costume, and just wanted to like spitfire, like come up with something because it was a drag conception of Alice in Wonderland, but no
Mm,
one could be Alice. The person throwing the party was going to play Alice. Everyone else had to play other characters from the show, but make it something more than just representing them with a basic costume from Party City.
Hmm.
Come up
mm,
with something. And so I pitched an idea, and I threw out like 10 ideas at them, and one of them landed. I said, you could even go as like the pool of tears that she cries, dress yourself in a toga, dip it in like fabric dye, some of the things, and then you could do your makeup so that half of your face is gone, So all you see are the eyes, and the rest of your body just becomes the pool of tears.
Oh, wow.
And that's the idea that they wound up going with.
Oh, neat.
I never got to see it, but it was just, and there's no pressure, there's no like, no nothing. I could just spitfire and throw ideas at the wall, and then they were like, I love this. And so we again took that and started whittling down of things that they could do to make it easily for them and work with a few different idea things. But I was like, I love this so much more than I do my day job.
Hmm.
It's great.
But that's also, um, I think we shouldn't necessarily always see them as opposites. You know, a day job, it's you might, you need it, and then the passion projects, they can go hand in hand. You know, they can coexist, um, and bring what they are meant to bring you.
Well, and especially, I think maybe Trey, for your job, some of your um, abilities with stage performance may have come in handy in your job as well, where because you've built yourself and your um, acting and singing and things like that, I imagine there's some of that that you can carry over into your day job as well, so that it, with giving presentations, or I don't know all of what you do, but I don't sit next to him at work anymore. So we, I find that creativity has bled into my job as well, as a whole, as a just an element of thinking in the way I do to be creative also can apply to work.
Mm. And but also energy.
Yeah.
Like if you did not have your passion projects outside of your day job, then you would not have the same energy bringing that into your day job, because all of these, the passion projects and the, or like me, for example, today when I've been working also a bit hard and I'm, coughing, and it's, been an effort, but like I love making changes to my home. I love making it more me. I like,
Mm-hmm.
uh, you know um, taking, seeing a space and thinking, oh, I can make a shelf and it can be like this to optimize the space and to look pretty and be, functional. That's something that I do out of, joy, and it's something that also gives me joy, even though I'm also a bit tired. But it's something that means that I'll take that experience and I'll bring that with me because I have a different energy than if I hadn't done that project.
Exactly.
And that, I think, is really important to think about when considering a creative, or making a shift from a passion project to work. That a lot of that gets lost. Mm.
I would agree. Um, I have to say, this last hour with you has been illuminating because it's not often I think that we talk to artists that are so, I think, fueled innately by themselves. They look
Mm.
for inspiration, and hearing the way that you talk about your art, and then also to get to see the fruits of your labor for that is so inspiring. I don't consider you, after hearing you speak about it, as just a jewelry maker. I think of you as a storyteller. I think of you as such a romantic. I think of you as such a worldly individual in the way that you conceive of art and then are able to create it. So I thank you
Mm.
for sharing that with us today.
Thank you so much. It's very kind.
My last question for you, which has nothing to do with anything we've talked about so far,
Mm.
is if you could sit down to have lunch with anybody in the world, alive or dead, who is sitting on the opposite side of that table from you?
Oof, that is very difficult. I I don't have a straight answer to that. I think I no, I don't. I It would have to be Hmm. No, I actually don't know. I'm trying to think, what kind of person would I want to meet? Um, and it could be an artist that that inspires me, or that I love their art. Or it could be a political figure, or someone who's, been important in world history. Um, but I also, what would be the my goal? Um, and that's too complicated for a short answer, I think. Yeah,
That's a very
I
valid.
will have to think. I'll have to think more about that. Yeah.
Okay.
No worries. Message us later. We'll put it on our Patreon. To see
Mm-hmm.
Una's answer, we'll put it on our Patreon.
To be determined.
Mm-hmm.
But as we close this episode out, again, I want to say thank you so much for being here. You can check out more of his work on his Instagram. It's at psjewelry2021, and you can also follow him on TikTok.
Oh yeah,
Oh,
I forget
yeah.
that. I do have a TikTok. I keep forgetting. And it's jewelry written in the British way of spelling, not the American.
Right. 2 L's,
Just for the
not just
record.
one.
Yeah.
Yes.
Mm.
Thank you. But
Oh, and that reminds me, I need to get back to TikTok. Yeah. Thank you for the reminder.
you're welcome.
And thank you so much. It's been really lovely chatting to you guys. A very new experience for me. And it felt really good. It's been a nice experience to talk to you about pretty and beautiful and nice things in the world that we live in today, which often feels like it's just too much of the other stuff.
Hmm.
Yeah.
That is why we exist.
Yeah. And I thank you for that.
Well, thank you for
Thank
being on the
you.
show. We had such a delightful time chatting with you today, and we hope one day you could come back and join us for another episode. That would be
That would be
wonderful.
lovely. I'd be very happy to.
We'd love that.
As we close this episode out, we want to thank everybody for tuning in, listening wherever you are listening to this episode. You can find other episodes from us on our website, themodrom.com, or wherever you obtain your episodes. We do have a Patreon. You can search for us on at the modrom, or follow us on social media. Thanks again for tuning in, everybody. Have a wonderful day. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.